Welcome everyone to the Burnt Ships Podcast NFL Draft Preview. We have the legendary returning champion, Brian, aka BDX,
Yes,
uh,
sir.
coming to give us his unique perspective, having coached football before, having played college football before, having numerous teammates go through the draft process as well as play in the league. He's uniquely qualified to keep us honest here as we go through and talk about some of the different prospects of the different positions for the upcoming NFL draft that's going to drop here in the next week or so.
2 weeks,
So,
14 days.
yeah.
The
So with
24th,
that being
right? Yeah.
said, I think we should have a way too early prediction on Rookie of the Year to kick it off, right? Everybody starts with positions. Let's start with who's going to be Rookie of the Year on offense, who's going to be the Rookie of the Year on defense, and then we'll get into the positions. So I will let you start, Brian, as the resident expert, and then we'll go around.
Talent-wise, I would say Travis Hunter should be the Rookie of the Year.
Are you predicting offense or defense?
Yes.
There's no way he gets both, but
I know. I said that's probably later in the podcast. Yeah. But no. I think so. Depending on who drafts him, I think if he's drafted and he's featured on offense,
yeah,
as well as playing his defensive snaps,
right?
It'd be kind of like a what do you want to call it? A lifetime achievement award, Rookie of the Year.
Hey.
But probably because if I'm looking at it, the only other thing I can see if the Giants end up with a quarterback. So if they take Shedeur or somebody if Shedeur goes to the Giants, I think Shedeur might have a chance.
That was going to be my pick for offense. That was going to be my sleeper pick. How about on defense? Travis or
no.
Abdul Carter?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's fair.
Yeah, that's a safe bet.
All right. Gary, you got any picks for offensive Rookie of the Year or defensive Rookie of the Year?
I was gonna, out of a sentimentality, this isn't really scientific, but just out of being a child of the 80s and 90s for primetime, I was gonna go with Shedeur. But yeah, man, you can't. Taylor's a good pick. In terms of, I didn't really have anybody for defense.
Taylor is in Mason Taylor. You feel like Jason Taylor's son is going to be a sleeper there because Brock Bowers didn't even get it. But you know what? That's a bold pick though.
But Brock would have gotten it if Jaden didn't. So if there's a good quarterback, the good quarterback is always going to get rookie.
That's the thing, and that's why I was the reason I'm thinking Shedeur is if the trends continue to where he slips out of that top 3, top 10 range, he's going to go to a more complete team. And his strengths, and this is us segueing into the quarterback breakdown, his strengths are accuracy and being a good point guard, right? I would say if you look at the stats, he happens to be the most accurate quarterback of his class. Now, he may not have the extreme mobility of a Cam Ward. He may not have that arm talent that Cam Ward does, but he has accuracy. He does have some mobility, and I think that he's polished. I would say, and by no means am I saying that this is a ceiling, but I would say he reminds me of someone on the Mac Jones to Peyton Manning scale, meaning not the throw it through a barn door cannon arm, but accurate point guard plus. So I would say that he's going to do well as long as he's not put in a super cold climate, like a Green Bay sort of thing. I have a lot of hopes for him. The reason that Peyton Manning did so well for so long is he was in a dome for at least half of his games, right?
I mean, but then he went to Denver.
And
that was outside and cold and set all the records.
Ducks, right? And so the concern for people who were at his pro day is they saw what we call ducks, and you can break that down if you want to, with a little more consistency than they expected. Now, there's nothing wrong with a duck in a vacuum. If you play in a dome, it's not going to be as big of a deal. But in the cold weather, that tight spiral will sometimes cut through conditions in a way that a duck won't, in terms of the accuracy. So that'll be the thing that'll be interesting to monitor. Yeah, go ahead.
So you're telling me that
Colorado
playing in the cold climes of Coral Gables has that same skill set off the rip. I'm just asking for a friend.
I was just saying, from a breakdown standpoint, I think Shedeur is getting unfairly penalized because of some prospect fatigue, honestly.
Yes.
But I think we're going to try to err on the side of giving the youngins grace. But I think he could have handled his interview process better as well. Because what I was hearing after the combine, and this is no. Again, I'm giving him grace when I say this.
No,
we've all been in job interviews, right? Yeah. And we all know that there's a way to project interest in the job you're interviewing for. Extensive research that you've done beforehand implying the interest, right? Versus just kind of going in, answering the questions, checking the boxes, and you're going through the interview, but you don't leave that interviewer with any impression that you legitimately would accept the job if it was offered. Now, with drafting, it's obviously a little different, but we're still dealing with human beings, and we're still dealing with people who like to think that you want to work with them, that you want to be around them and join their program. And so the critique that I heard coming out of the combine interviews was that he kind of showed up. He's like, I am what I am. I do what I do. You'd be lucky to have me. I'm not in an arrogant way, but I think I can raise your program. So, I'm good. Right. So it wasn't, whereas I heard things like Drake May, and this is not to make a comparison of the two, like from a talent standpoint, but Drake May would come in and know all the names of the coaches, address them individually, talk about, oh yeah, and I saw when you did that, and I know you came from this school. He had literally done his research on each and every position coach, coordinator, etc., greeted them all by name, and made small talk belying that he had really studied those guys, and it made a big impression on people. And so I guess that can be a learning lesson for our listeners, just that in anything, one of the ways that you can make a better impression for whatever you're going for is to not only show the competence, but maybe sprinkle in the human element to kind of ingratiate yourself a little more, to where people are excited, or they might be rethinking like, hey, this guy's energy, he won me over. He could probably win over a team, that whole thing. Because again, it's the human element. We know the tape is king, but when we're talking about pro sports, it's not just the tape. It's how's he going to be in the locker room? What example is he going to set? Is he going to win those guys? Are they going to fight for him, et cetera, right? We've all seen scenarios where people don't like the quarterback, and those types of quarterbacks never stay in one place too long, right? And I'm not saying that that's going to happen with Shedeur. I'm just saying that I think one of the things that may have led to people now moving off him in the top 10 is that he didn't ingratiate himself at the level some of the decision makers were maybe hoping for in the combine interviews. But go ahead, man. What do you have on Shedeur? Anything that I've covered or anything you want to cover that I didn't cover?
What's up for me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So first off, look at the tape. Are there any interviewers on the field when he's throwing the ball? First of all. Second of all, Nate, how many starting quarterbacks in the NFL did you know that aren't divas? I'll wait.
So
I'll wait. Give me a number between 0 and 10.
See, right now it's tough. I think if I had to think, some of them started off as divas though.
No, they all are. You can't play the quarterback position without being a diva.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be. So think about it. You're 20, 22, early 20s. You're coming into an NFL locker room full of grown men, and you're supposed to be a leader.
Mm-hmm.
You know who did?
It's the toughest job in all of sports.
I'll tell you two rookies from the past class that didn't give off diva to me were Jaden Daniels and Drake May in terms of
they are both divas.
I'm just saying they didn't give off diva. You get what I'm saying?
And also like
Caleb Williams gave off diva to make a distinction.
The difference is that for me, the difference is when I look at it, Drake May's dad is not primetime. Like Drake May's dad is not a Hall of Fame player with a career in the NFL who's been grooming his son since he was a little kid to do what he did. So I think from if I'm putting myself in Shedeur's shoes, like I already know 90% of what goes on in the league in a way that Drake May didn't heading into the league.
He grew up in.
And so even if he's projected to fall, first of all, he still might go in the top 10. But even if he does, he knows his worth. And I think like we all know who Primetime was, right? Like he knew he was a bad man. And I think on some level, that the human part of him passing that on to his son in a similar way that like that love him or hate him. What's the dad in basketball? Lamar Ball. Like Lamar Ball understood something very fundamental about the mentality in the sport, whatever the professional sport is. It's you got to have swag and confidence, and I think that's probably on some level what was happening with Shedeur in those interviews.
Yeah, I think there's a happy medium, right? And because we got to give Cam Ward some love too here and talk about some of the other QBs, but just in general, because I think this is going to apply to all prospects. There's elements of reading the room and knowing when you don't have to be on quote unquote on and curating your brand when you're interacting with people. Mm-hmm. And I think that if you don't read the room in that way, then sometimes you can rub people the wrong way, right? So there's nothing wrong with
rub people. Hold on, I'm cutting you off purposely, and I apologize in advance.
Go ahead.
But you mean rub people the wrong way, like saying my son's not going to play for the San Diego Chargers, so Giants, you better draft him?
Absolutely.
So that was a Hall of Fame father.
Yes.
Saying what his top prospect son was going to do or not do. Why are we even? What's the difference?
So that was the father. That wasn't the son. Number one. But yeah, I'm with you.
But no, so at least Shedeur showed up to interview.
Right.
Eli didn't even interview. He's like, if y'all draft me, I ain't playing. Elway did the same thing. If y'all draft me, I'm gonna go play baseball. Like, why are we doing this with Shedeur? We ain't do this. We ain't have that same energy for them other quarterbacks.
So what's the difference between those two? I wonder, Brian.
Well, no. What I was going to say is that it's just a function of I can bring whatever energy I want. It's a free country, right? But I also have to be mindful of if I know I'm going to get drafted. Like there's no way Shedeur leaves the second round without getting drafted, right?
Wasn't he in New York for the Heisman?
So yes, he was.
He was a Heisman finalist. What are we talking about?
But the subtlety of it, and this is all I'm going to say, is that do you want teams to fall in love with you and like seal the deal? It's kind of like well, I mean, like it's basically an interview, right? And so fundamentally,
yes and no.
No. In other words, I'm telling you what teams were saying to reporters. I'm not putting a value judgment on how he carries himself because they're giving these young guys grace. But
it's not
at
even
the same
grace.
time,
He don't have no scandals. He's never done anything.
I agree.
He don't got no rap sheet, no
yeah,
nothing. I'll tell you what. I'll put you this way.
we're
What
about to
word?
agree.
Hey, let me ask this rhetorical question. Well, it's not a rhetorical question. Well, now it is.
Good.
Let me ask this question.
Good.
What did they say about Eli Manning's interviews?
I don't
You
remember.
can't remember exactly.
You know why?
That's my whole point.
What?
5
I mean,
years from now,
it's a tale as
the
old as
interview-
time. Like the bottom line is,
No,
black,
I'll tell you
black,
what, like at that point, I hated every Manning on the planet because we were in the midst of a big rivalry with Peyton Manning. So anytime I saw anything with the last name Manning, I skipped the news article. And I will admit that I was an unabashed Peyton Manning hater, Archie Manning hater, Eli Manning hater. If Cooper had made it to the league, I probably would have hated Cooper. When Arch Manning gets to the league, I'll probably hate him just on principle.
You'd hate Cooper on crutches, bro.
I own it. I own it. I am a Manning hater.
I think we're not even disagreeing really, because like I hear you now. I don't disagree with either of what you're saying. Like to me, it's uncontroversial. To the idea that the league would hold a young black man coming into the league to a different set of standards in the press than a white guy, of course. And it's also true that that Eli Manning got away with similar things than other players. And so yes, it's true. Yes, there's a time to like.
You're thinking of Peyton Manning sexually harassing the trainer.
No,
I'm specifically talking about Eli because that's the comp for this conversation.
Right. But whatever it is, there's just a double standard. That's just objective fact. And it's true. What you're saying is a separate point to me. Like, yes, we have to teach our young people how to navigate interviews and bureaucracies and soft skills and all that stuff. And it's also, even when you do that.
Yeah, there's nuance to it.
Even when you do that, it often is still held against you just based on other things besides that.
Yeah, 100%.
Wait a minute. Even
takeaway, because we got to get to Cam Ward, we got to get to Jackson Dart.
No, I am. I'm about to give you a segue.
All right, go ahead.
So for Shedeur Sanders versus Cam Ward, or Cam Ward versus Shedeur Sanders, my argument is simple.
Go ahead.
Swap teams. Put Cam Ward behind Colorado's line, put Shedeur Sanders behind Miami's line. Are the results the same? I will tell you no. So projecting forward, going into the NFL,
right?
The likelihood, especially if you get drafted with a high draft pick, you're going to go to a bad team.
Yeah,
more than likely that team's going to have a bad offensive line.
Yes.
So Shedeur Sanders had a bad line with good receivers.
Yes,
that's probably what he's going to end up with in the NFL.
Yes.
So he's already shown that. Has Cam Ward shown that?
So here's what I would say about Cam Ward, because I think this is
a great way of putting it, man. You're good at this, Brian.
Yeah, it's almost like you have experience with football. So I would say you talk about Shedeur versus Cam Ward and being behind a bad line in the NFL because you're probably going to get put on a bad team. What I'm going to say is this, and then you can react to it and keep me honest here.
Yes.
My critique of Shedeur Sanders when his line falls apart is he tends to run backwards without a plan.
Yeah.
And sometimes run straight backward, like not to the side to try to see if there's something clean. He runs straight backwards and then he tries to do a spin move and sometimes ends up losing the team 10, 20 yards. I've seen it multiple times. I watched almost every Colorado game. I can say this with complete confidence. Shedeur's footwork, when the pocket breaks down, goes to complete shit. That being said, he is still the most accurate quarterback in his class. And
with the bad footwork,
back on Shedeur Sanders. I'm just saying, behind a bad line, somebody has to coach him out of that, run 10 yards backwards, because all those plays he got away with and got running 10 yards backwards and then figuring it out. This is a different level of speed. This is a different talent of pass rusher. and when he starts retreating back, he's going to get feasted on.
Oh, yeah.
So he's going to have a better plan for when his protection breaks down.
Mm-hmm. But here's the thing, like, don't you think that's just that? Yes, and that's just him knowing where he's playing at, right? Like I think in part that's like, oh yeah, I can get away with.
Bad fundamentals are bad, but so I'll give you an example, right? Like Caleb Williams did the same thing last year before he went pro, and there are times when it was cringe. But generally speaking, he wasn't going directly 10 yards back. He was trying to eventually get to one side or the other, get out of the pocket, and make a deep throw. In some cases, that was in the context of hero ball, but at least it was mindful of, I'm going to get out of this trouble, make the play downfield, and make them pay for getting this close to me. I did not see that level of play on a consistent enough basis with Shedeur going straight back versus Caleb going back into the right or back into the left or spin and feint up and then out. You get what I'm saying? So I think even when you're trying to escape, there needs to be a suite of moves that either your QB coach gives you or you work off season with, whatever you want to call it, where it's a little more productive than just running straight back. Because you know, and I know he will get murdered running 10 yards back in the league. So they got to clean that up ASAP.
And that's assuming that he is in an offensive system
right.
that requires 7-step dropbacks on a consistent basis, which is what was happening in Colorado.
Right.
Well, it ended up being 7-step dropbacks because the protection broke down. So, a quick throw passing game, a West Coast offense solves that problem.
Yeah, and I was about to say Colorado had a decent amount of short passing game too, which translates really nicely to the pros. So I will give him that. He's set up for that. With Cam Ward, I think it's more tools, right? Because he had the one good year at Miami, right? Like Washington State tape, if you look at it, he wasn't that Cam Ward. But I think Miami, he had a better surrounding cast. He had better coaching. And things clicked, similar to when Jaden Daniels went from, was it Arizona State to LSU?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think
basically you need to go to Arizona State. That's what I'm hearing here.
Yeah, so this was a similar transition for Cam Ward where he got around better talent, better coaching, and the light bulb went on, and he rode that horse. I think, honestly, looking at that team, not to say he didn't have some games where he made questionable turnovers, but I would say if you want to debate why Miami didn't make the playoffs, I would say there's a decent amount of times where the defense actually let them down more than the offense did, right?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Because it was one of those things where, similar to Caleb Williams in his last year, he felt like he had to score 30 to 40 to win the game because the defense wasn't going to slow them down.
But it wasn't like Colorado's defense was top 10. So what I'm saying is,
yes. So I was.
Hold on, E. What I'm saying is, you're talking about two quarterbacks in similar situations.
Yes.
And they ended up in the same spot productive wise. So both of them were on the outside looking in on the playoff.
Yep.
They could have won their way in. Neither of them did. And what I'm saying is Shedeur Sanders had better wide receiver talent. Way worse offensive line and no running game.
Yeah.
Cam Ward was in a better offensive situation.
Cam had a better tight end and a better running back.
Yes. So he had a running game where Colorado had no running game.
I think Restrepo would have been WR3 on Colorado at best. And that's no shade to Restrepo. I like Restrepo's game. He's got heart. But in my opinion, Restrepo on Miami would have been WR3 on Colorado. Do you agree or no? You see him as WR2?
But I'm not even talking about. I'm talking about. I mean,
So
I'm saying so we have superior production with Sanders.
Superior accuracy.
That's production. Is it not?
Well, like you can have more yards but be less accurate. So yeah, that's offense.
But I mean, so he had at worst arguable similar production because Cam Ward was in he was a finalist too, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But one clearly had a worse offensive line.
Yeah.
And did it at multiple schools. Because so at Jackson State. No, but hey.
I'm with you.
Hey, throw shade at HBCU if you want, but I can name off 15 Hall of Famers that came from HBCU.
I'm not.
And
so what I was gonna say is here's why I think people are higher on Cam Ward. I think he has stronger mobility. I think he can break off runs that demoralize defense in a way that Shedeur can't, because Shedeur typically does not. There's two reasons. Number one, when Shedeur takes off, he doesn't really do it with the same level of plan. He's kind of like,
no, but it's the last resort for him.
Right? Cam is either like, I'm going to run, I'm going to juke this guy, I'm going to get 10 yards and I'm going to go down, or I'm going to run, and if this guy comes off Restrepo, I'm gonna throw it, or I forgot to see, or Arroyo, his tight end. This guy comes off Arroyo, I'm gonna check it real quick, right? Okay. And then also, Cam Ward has I'm gonna say slightly better arm, because I don't want people to think we're crapping on Shedeur Sanders, but Cam Ward's arm is at a higher level. It's just his arm talent is better. He can throw it down the field a little harder. He has a few more options with the angles. It's kind of like if you were to compare like Mahomes' options versus Manning's options. Like Manning will still get it done, but Mahomes can throw from crazier angles and throw on the run and do things that. Right. And that's where I'm going with it. So go ahead. What do you like about Cam Ward? What do you like about Cam Ward?
No, I like all those things about Cam. To me, I think they're comparable. I think they're equals. My thing is, if you look at Shedeur Sanders and his path, the thing that I'm looking at are the things that I saw on film with the situation they had. Which one is more transferable to more teams?
Right.
Shedeur Sanders, you could pop him in, because I've seen him play and succeed and elevate a team behind a bad offensive line with good skill talent. We've seen that, it's documented. I can't say the same for Cam Ward. I'm not saying that Cam Ward is going to do the same thing, but I got the tape. I got the tape on Shedeur.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. I don't think either one is a wrong answer.
Right. I think the reason that people are higher on Cam is, again, mobility edge, arm strength edge. And there were games where Cam looked like the best player on the field. There just were more games in Cam Ward's season where he looked like the best player on the field than Shedeur looked like the best player on the field. And that's no shade to Shedeur. I think Shedeur is like I said, he's on that Mac Jones, Peyton Manning axis where it's great
he's
point.
Better than Matt Jones, bro.
Accurate.
Don't even besmirch his name by saying Matt Jones. I'll give you payment. I can't give you Matt Jones the backup where?
So what I'm saying is the floor for Shedeur.
No. Shedeur Sanders' floor is way higher than Matt Jones. Come on, bro. Come on, man.
I'm saying this with love. I feel like the coaching screwed Mac Jones. I don't feel like Mac Jones was.
Nah, he was a reach. He was already a reach.
He made the Pro Bowl his rookie year. He made the Pro Bowl his rookie year.
He was still a reach. He was a reach like Kenny Pickett was a reach.
He made his Pro Bowl. He made a Pro Bowl his rookie year, and then McDaniels got a new job and left. And he was saddled with a defense.
Wait a minute, did he make the Pro Bowl or was he a replacement?
It's a good question. I'll have to dig into it.
Oh, I already know the answer, bro.
But where I'm going with this is, like, I don't necessarily think that Mac Jones, I feel like coaching ruined Mac Jones. I don't feel like Mac Jones in a vacuum is a trash player. So
why is he made one Pro Bowl in 21.
Yeah. So let's talk about.
He made one Pro Bowl in 21.
No, that was I know he made a Pro Bowl, which is a matter of like everybody makes a Pro Bowl.
So
to me, I'm like, are you all pro?
right.
If you're not all pro, to me, Pro Bowls mean nothing to me. Are you all pro or not? Did you set a record or not?
So let me ask you this as a fan of a quarterback needy team, right? We got Jackson Dart in the mix. Some people are arguing that Jackson Dart might be better than Shedeur. I'm not personally one of them, but there are some NFL scouts who are high on Jackson Dart. I've seen a few Jackson Dart games. They played my Demon Deacons. They won. Jackson Dart looked capable. Jackson Dart looked like a solid starter. Jackson Dart to me looked like a day 2 quarterback, which there's nothing wrong with it. There's been plenty of successful day 2 quarterbacks. Again, this is not shade. Don't fry us for. He looked like a solid day 2 quarterback that you could put in to a team that already had some solid pieces and potentially have a respectable season. Where do you come down on Jackson Dart? Like, would you be mad if the Steelers drafted him on day 2, or
Yes.
where do you fall on Jackson Dart?
Jackson Dart is Brock Purdy without a deep ball.
Okay, that's fair.
So, and the way I wouldn't be mad, I'm not mad at him being a first round pick or even an early second round pick.
Right.
I would be mad at him being a first, second round pick for the Steelers because his skill set doesn't fit our offensive philosophy.
Okay. So let's move on from Jackson Dart after that review.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's honest. I don't. So we have you here to tell us the real, man. You know, we're not playing John Gruden where we love everybody up. If somebody is what they are, it's okay to say.
Well, that's the thing. It's not that I'm not loving it. I'm just saying,
yeah,
I don't think he's a good fit for this particular team. I'm not saying he's not a good fit for a team. Shoot, San Fran could pick him up.
He's a good game manager, I think. Well,
and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying for what Pittsburgh needs. And that's the Kenny Pickett pick.
I'll tell you, and you can fry me on this, but I think his ceiling is Baker Mayfield. Ceiling. And I think that's as high as he can go. Now, depending on what's around him, that could be great or that could be right? Just kind of like Baker Mayfield, like kind of had an up and down career. So let's get to 2 quarterbacks that were thought highly of at the beginning of the season and kind of underperformed in a way that was disappointing. We got Quinn Ewers and we got Jalen Milroe, right? Both looked like potential first rounders the previous season. Quinn Ewers, famously got to the playoffs, right? The Final Four or whatever it was, and looked halfway decent. But this year, even though we had Matthew Golden, who's considered to be potentially a first-round wide receiver, even though he had Gunnar Helm, who's considered to be a draftable tight end, without Adonai Mitchell and Quincy, it just seemed like he wasn't the same quarterback. He didn't make the same decisions.
No, I agree.
And this is with 2 arguably first round or day 2 tackles, right? And Kelvin Banks and Cameron Williams. So we can't blame the offensive line either. He had arguably the same line, if not a better line. So we have Quinn Ewers on one hand. We got Jalen Milroe on the other. Love his speed, love his mobility. But for whatever reason, the accuracy and the decision-making seem to take a step back. So can either of those quarterbacks be coached up into starters, or do you think they are what they are at this point? Where do you land on those 2 guys?
I think they both can. I think the margin of error for Quinn Ewers is much lower because he doesn't have the athleticism of Milroe. Milroe's a 99 athletic talent. So to me, I'm looking at Milroe as like a poor man's Lamar Jackson.
Okay.
If you think back, the same things. I mean, Lamar Jackson was a late first round pick. Ravens picked him up, I think, like pick 31.
Yeah.
So to me, like that's
or like 30, something like that.
30, 31, like it was the end of the first round.
Yeah.
And people roasted the Ravens for making that pick.
I always knew he was going to be a good starter. I just never knew if he was going to be an MVP. But obviously,
And he was the Heisman Trophy winner that broke all the records.
yeah.
So I'm saying, so to me, like Milroe has that ceiling athletically,
Yes.
but he doesn't have that ceiling from a throwing talent perspective that Lamar. Because I remember, I mean, we're both ACC
Right.
fans. So I remember watching Lamar Jackson in Louisville,
Yeah.
carve us up.
Yeah.
Darren's throw, and damn near perfect passer rating. So even with all of that, they were still doubting him.
Right.
Milroe is a order of magnitude below.
Yeah.
What Lamar Jackson was. I look at Milroe as like a better, because gotta homer it. I look at him as a better Cordell Stewart.
Okay. So
I would like if we drafted Milroe, I wouldn't be mad. With our offensive scheme and our coordinator I wouldn't be mad at that at all.
So how much time do you think you need, either one or both? How much time do you think they would need before they could be a starter?
Definitely a year, probably 2.
Okay, fair
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you got on the quarterbacks, Gary? Do you want to add? Do you have a favorite quarterback that we haven't touched on?
Nope. Those are all the key ones, I think.
Yeah, and the only reason I'm saying that is, let's be honest, it's a pretty weak quarterback class.
Yeah, dude. But it's the most important position in the game, so you got to spend some time on it.
Right. There's because most people get excited about it. But to me, there's only three starters that in this draft, right? To me, it's Cam Ward, Shedeur, and Jackson Dart right now. Now, like you said, with the right coaching, Quinn Ewers, Milroe maybe get there, but I would not feel comfortable putting Ewers or Milroe out there week 1 behind whatever.
No. I think if the Steelers so my scenario, if we draft Milroe,
yeah,
then we sign Aaron Rodgers.
Oh,
I'm mad I even spoke into existence. But if a veteran quarterback starts, and then Milroe comes, kind of the same thing with Cordell Stewart. We still had O'Donnell. Cordell came in, did the slash thing, had a package for him. Kind of like what I thought was going to happen with Justin Fields, except it didn't. But that to me is on brand for the Steelers. But I don't think it's going to happen.
And to be fair for our listeners, just because somebody's not a day one starter doesn't mean they can't be a starter. If you look, Mahomes, they let him bake basically for a season. Brady got to incubate for a season and change. There's a lot of legendary Hall of Fame quarterbacks who had to wait 1, 2, even 3 years. I think McNair had to wait a while.
Yeah.
Steve Young had to wait a while.
Yep.
So we're not saying that any of these quarterbacks are horrible because they need a year to become starters. We don't want you to think that. So I just want to clarify before people start flaming in the comments. All right.
And I think the league is moving more towards that. If it isn't a transcendent first round, Jaden Daniels, old boy from the Texans.
CJ
Stroud.
Yeah.
By the way, all of these were the second. They weren't the number one. They were the second pick. By the way, Bryce Young is coming around. Caleb Susan, but most, if you're not a generational talent, I think we're leaning more towards the hey, let's let him sit for a year, and see what happens.
Because that's what it used to be, number one, and then number two. Most of these guys who had great rookie years had an extra year because of COVID. I want that context for our
that's a good point
as well.
That's a very good point.
So some of these guys started for 5 or 6 years, like 57 starts. I think Jaden Daniels had. That's not normal. Typically, a quarterback comes in as a freshman, they might not even get to start. Like 30. Somewhere between 20 to 30 starts is typically what I would handicap a pro prospect at. So 57 starts is double that or almost double that, depending on what you. And so Jaden Daniels had such a unique set of experience before he got there. He was
Right.
almost like a second-year player because he had played so much football.
Right, which goes back to, and I know you're about to go to the next point, and I'm putting a bow in this, which goes back to the film.
Yeah.
So like everybody knocked Jaden Daniels for his size, everybody knocked him for, the way he ran, the way he always wanted to get out of the pocket and run the ball. He's too small to run. But the same stuff he was doing at LSU, guess what happened? He did the same stuff at Washington.
Absolutely. He was my QB1 last year.
Yeah.
Like having watched him live, having talked with you guys in the group chat, having seen the highlights, he was my personal QB1, and good for him. I'm glad. Congrats for him on the good season. With that being said, I think we've talked about the quarterbacks that matter. Now let's get into O-line, and only because left tackle is a big ticket position. I know it's not sexy, but it is a big ticket position. And if you have a bad left tackle, your quarterback might get hurt. Your quarterback might get rolled up on. Ask Bengals fans about Carson Palmer and how Kimo von Alhoffen steamrolled his knee unapologetically when the left tackle didn't live up to expectations. So with that being said, one of the most controversial prospects this year is Will Campbell out of LSU. He famously only allowed 2 sacks, right? But the problem is he basically has a T-Rex wingspan. And what I mean by that is, and this is no shade. Generally speaking, and you can see this as a coach of an entire team, right? For the NFL, generally speaking, you want a wingspan of 80 inches or above. And the reason for that is because you're going to deal with speed rushers, you're going to deal with power rushers. And when you're 300 plus pounds, you might not be as quick twitch, as fast to move as the 250 to 280 pounder that has his hand in the dirt and lives there and is doing all the speed training. So you have to have a little more girth to try to slow the dude down, put hands on him, et cetera, et cetera. The stats are for Will Campbell's wingspan, it's like a handful of people in the last 25 years that even made the Pro Bowl with that wingspan, which is pretty damning data, right? So it's one of those things where I wanted to look into it, so I kind of dug into it like, well, is the tape so good that we can pretend he's the unicorn, that he's going to somehow overcome 25 years of data? And what you find when you look on the tape, in my opinion, is that because he knows he's a smaller guy. And the problem is, even though I think his arms are like 33 or 32 and 7/8, but his torso
for the folks out in the crowd, folks out in the crowd, mine are like 33. And I'm fine.
Right. And the issue is his torso is also, so you got a thin torso and you have small arms. So what he's doing to compensate in his sets is sometimes he'll line up a little bit more to the outside. And when he gets quick, right. So, but when he gets beat quick, it's to the inside because he's done this kind of overcompensation to the left-hand side, and it's allowing him to get beat in. And as we know, as football fans, interior pressure screws the quarterback up a lot quicker than him having to go around you. So the concern with Will Campbell for me, and then I'll let you cook, is that I feel like if you have a great blocking tight end that's going to chip, or like a beast running back that loves to go out into pass sets but will chip a DN on the way, then cool. Have Will Campbell line up normally and have that chip and run that chip, and you should be good because by the time that chip sets in, Will can adjust to wherever he needs to.
Okay.
The problem is that chip is slowing down that route.
Not necessarily.
But potentially, let me put potentially slowing down that route depending on
not necessarily. If the pass protection includes the running back, and then the running back is the check down. He's not a part of the route.
Right. But I guess what I'm saying is some people are saying he should go top 10. And to me, if I'm drafting a left tackle top 10, I should have a plan to chip to help him all year. Like, that's not top 10 to me. Top 10 is, he can be on the island, he can handle it, and we'll help him out if it's a problem. Like, if it's like Von Miller in his peak, or a Chop Robinson, or like one of those elite pass rushers on the edge, sure, we're going to chip him sometimes just to give the left tackle a breather and wear down the passer and slow him down. And then the fourth quarter, he should be able to hold up, one-on-one because the guy's gassed. That's kind of the plan, right? But not every week. All right, hey, tight end, you got a chip. Hey, running back, you got to. Yeah, I know, but you got a chip. That's not a top 10 to me. So I'm going to let you cook on Will Campbell. What have you seen on him? Where do you land on him? Is he a guard for you, or do you think he can pull off tackle with help?
Well, here's my question. How many sacks did he give up this year?
So in his entire career, he gave up 2. But
in what conference?
SEC.
And where do all the top pass rushers come from?
SEC.
Okay, so why are we having this conversation?
So here's
because the press is talking about it.
I'll tell you why we're having the time. 2 reasons. When you look at the tape, there's plenty of times where he gets beat quick and the QB throws the ball away, or somehow
every other offensive lineman known to man.
I'm not. This isn't to bash Will Campbell.
No, I'm not bashing him.
And then if you look at the South Carolina game against Kyle Kennard, who's considered to be like a day 2 pass rusher pick, he had some significant struggles. So his tape doesn't. Here's the best way for me to put this. When you watch his tape, it doesn't make you think, oh, yeah, I see why he only allowed 2 sacks. When you watch his tape, you think, man, he's lucky that QB evaded this pressure.
That's every QB. That's part of the position. Like, so if I'm in 5-man protection, so I already know that my running back's out in the route. Right. Basically I got hot reads and me throwing it away.
Right.
If the quarterback throws it away, and that's the protection call, tackle did his job.
So I guess
so in that particular case, so now if he gives us a sack in 5-man protection, that's a loss.
Right.
That happened twice.
So
how many other linemen only gave up 2 sacks?
I'm with you. So that
tape's tape, bro.
But there's plenty of
reduction protection.
No, I'm gonna let you cook, but there's plenty of left tackles in college that had to become guards in the NFL because the wingspan was issue. Peter Skoronski, right? That's a classic example. He was a great guard at Northwestern, like if you look at Michigan, Ohio State, they also have a tradition of having some decent D linemen, right? I mean, but for whatever reason, dude was just too small in his wingspan to ever make that transition to tackle in the NFL. They had to move him to guard. They said on draft night, we'll figure out if he's a tackle or a guard. And then they got him into camp and they're like, no, never mind, you're a guard. I give up.
But that's okay. To me, that's okay. So if I draft a elite offensive lineman,
right,
in the top 10,
right,
and that guy ends up being an all-pro guard who can also play tackle.
Yeah.
Are you mad at that? When you need
help
at all positions?
It depends on where I drafted him.
If I
drafted him overall, I'm mad.
Answer the question. I asked if you are a team that needs help all over the offensive line.
I answered.
You draft a guy who can play multiple positions. So if he doesn't work out at left tackle,
right,
or right tackle, at worst,
he's a guard.
No, he'll be an elite guard.
Right. So
how is that bad?
I'm not saying it's bad, but I think we can agree. Just like the whole argument of, do you draft a running back high? Do you draft?
It's a different argument.
No, hear me out. There's a positional. It's
not a positional thing because like running back is a position.
Yes.
That'd be like saying I'm going to draft a tight end who can play running back. That's different than saying I'm going to draft a offensive lineman who I know is going to be a starter and
Right.
probably a Pro Bowl player, but I'm not sure if it's going to be a starter at tackle or a starter at guard.
My only caveat to that is, generally speaking, the top 10 is where you want your tackles. You're not really trying to draft a guard in the top 10. Like, it's at least the general conventional wisdom is guards second half of the first round or lower, right? Very
And the
rarely
general conventional wisdom is that
you
running backs
see.
ain't shit last year. How'd that work out for the NFL?
Real quick, like I wasn't even aware about the wingspan thing until you pinned it in the notes, bro. And I'll just say, like, to me, as somebody that doesn't have as much knowledge about football as you two, but my first gut response was, this seems like analytics gone awry, and
Nah.
just like
That's the real thing. I'll
just
explain.
like
I'll
just
explain
like
to
the
you.
press
I'll explain to you
needs
after.
something to talk
So-
about, and then they
No.
pick on this really
So,
arcane thing.
25 years of
And that's, to me, it's just like, it's a non-story, honestly.
Well,
to me, as a lay fan.
Okay, but in 25 years, there's been like maybe 2 Pro Bowlers with his wingspan. That's not good odds, right? Like, if you were, you know what I mean? Because part of it is you have to play the numbers in this game. Like, if you want, jobs are on the line, livelihoods are on the line, people get fired over this. So you're going to say, hey, there's only been 2 guys in the last 25 years with his measurables that were successful at tackle. Are we betting our jobs that this is the guy? That is a real and legitimate conversation, right? Because 25 years of data is telling you, regardless of how great you think he is, like shout out to Robert Gallery. I think a lot of people thought Robert Gallery was a can't miss prospect. They're like, oh, if he doesn't work out at tackle, we'll move him to guard because he's just so can't miss out of Iowa. And you know what? He missed it both. And I say that not to put down Will Campbell. By all accounts, he has great football character. He's a great leader. I think he got the number 7, which is big for the LSU program. I'm not discounting any of that, but the measurements are the measurements, and the success of people in the NFL with those measurements is not promising.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess for me, like, when I hear Brian's analogy just rings true more for me. Like, to me, I'm more of an eye test guy. So if he's successful in the way that he's been against the most competitive pass rush in college in the SEC, to me, if I'm drafting, I would go with that. But I don't work for the league, but that's how I would look at it.
Well, I'll put it to you this way: if that's going to be the standard, so we're gonna say, even though you excelled, because giving up 2 sacks anywhere in the offensive line, that's excelling. So excelling against what I can't even say how much hype all of the SEC gets over all their defensive players. Eagles, half their defense is SEC, and rookies, first year, second year. You can't have it both ways. You can't have a dude that goes out and beats these guys, and then, oh, no, his arms are too short. But then you say, oh, well, the SEC is the best defense in college football. So because they played in the SEC and they played defense, they're automatically first rounder. You can't do both. So if he stopped those guys, he's a first rounder too.
I'm not saying he's not a first rounder. I'm just saying I don't have him as my LT1, even though I think that it's a debate, but I don't have him personally as my LT1.
So I'll give 2 points to support both what you're saying and to provide some context to what we're talking about with Gary. So I went through a pro day.
Right.
Yeah, so then they had a pro day attack. All the seniors went out there. I think when I was there, it was Antonio Freeman. It was Antonio Freeman, Brian Still, like it was those. But we all went through all the drills. We did all the measurements and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Antonio Freeman ran a 4.640.
Right.
Antonio Freeman has a Super Bowl record for the longest punt return in history.
Right.
But he took a hit on his draft stock because his 40 time was too slow.
Yeah.
Mind you, at that time, he was the leading receiver in Virginia Tech history. leading punt returner in Virginia Tech history. But because he ran a 4.6,
Yeah, exactly.
he's trash.
Right.
So
And it can't be that. Now, to Gary, to Nan's point, the measurables do mean something. So, like the arm, when it comes to pass blocking, the arm length means a lot. So for me, I'm 5'8", but my wingspan is way longer than my height. Like my arms reach down to my knees.
Yeah, you have a bigger wingspan than Will Campbell is the concern.
Well, it's probably about the same. He's probably longer than mine, but it's comparable. But at 5'8", that meant when I went in pass pro to pick up middle linebackers or safeties off the edge, I could put my hands on them even though I was shorter,
right?
Before they could put their hands on me,
right?
And that's the thing that they're measuring,
right?
Yeah.
And for me being short and having longer arms, that actually helped my position because I had leverage. So if I put my hands on you and I'm short, being I played about 225, and you're 6'3", 225, which most of our linebackers they're like 220, 230 to 250. Even if you were bigger than me, I could put my hands on you, and because I was a low man, it's harder for you to beat that pass block.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's specific to the running back position. Specific to the tackle position, the arm reach means if your foot speed lags, which you're going to be slower than your edge rushers. But if my arm is long enough, and my feet are fast enough, like it's a combination.
Right.
Move my feet to get in the spot.
That makes sense. Yeah.
That's what non is.
I understand.
So what I'm getting at is
by like I said, like I was expecting better tape and better highlights than what I saw. And this is again no shade to Will Camp, but it's like for me to say, yeah, pull that trigger, he's still my LT1. I want to see that dominant tape. I want to see that Joe Alt. You know what I mean? I want to see that mean streak. I need to see that.
Okay, cool. So Joe Alt, that's a great example. With the Chargers, where they end up?
Yeah, he's with the Chargers. He's playing.
No, but where they end up?
He's playing right tackle right now.
Oh, okay.
That's
what I'm saying. Like it's a gamble. It's a dice throw.
Speaking of right tackle, because I think that's a perfect segue. Armand Membu, considered to be even more athletic than Will Campbell. An actual legit wingspan this time. We're talking safely past the 80-inch mark for wingspan. Arm length at least, I think it's over 34 inches. Considered to be athletically really good and like
a 4.9, didn't he?
Right, which is great for a tackle, right?
No, that's if you're a lineman and you run under a 5 flat.
Yeah,
you're doing things.
I think he had the best relative athletic score in the combine. Just for context, right? Now, he's a right tackle, but the debate about him is if he's this athletic, et cetera, can they move him to left tackle and not miss a beat? So as a former coach and, a football player in general, how do you feel about trying a career right tackle at left? What do you think is a learning curve? What do you think is the likelihood of success? Is it a good idea to draft a right tackle expecting that? Where do you come down on that?
I would draft him at right tackle and work him at left. So training camp through, well, not really preseason more, but I would work him in. So it's the same thing. It's like when I look at linemen, I'm looking at their primary role and then I'm looking at their secondary role.
Right.
So if I know he could play right tackle. He's played right tackle. He's got the athleticism. You can't coach speed, so I can coach that up.
Okay.
But left tackle, to your point, the transition between right tackle and left tackle is all technique.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to, replicate that speed, that technique, what you're going against at that level. So I think it'll take him, and I might be wrong, but I think it'll take him some time. But I would slide him in at right and then see how he works out at left.
Yeah.
Maybe practice squad, maybe, like whatever opportunity I can get to get him in at multiple positions. Because I'm thinking, this is what the offensive line, you're you're drafting for, you have your perennial starter, but you need depth because it's not like you don't have a backup left tackle. You got like 8 offensive linemen, and they all play what they can play.
So the one thing I like about Membu, and then we can move on to the best of the rest, and if you got a guy, definitely shout him out. I like the way that he's able to do single hand punches within his technique, because sometimes if you commit to 2 hands,
that single hand, that's
right, you'll get beat.
Yeah.
But typically what I've seen him do in some of his better reps is, all right, I'm gonna start with this hand, and then if I screw it up, I'm gonna do this hand. Because he's got that athleticism, it gives him more time to adjust, and also because he has that longer reach, he can get away with 1 instead of 2. Whereas I've never seen Will Campbell be able to get away with a 1-arm punch.
But a 1-arm, but I'm saying, that's like what he's athletically be able to do. Not necessarily. Yeah. My playing design wouldn't necessarily be for him to make 1-hand punches. You feel me?
Oh, no, 100%. I'm just saying that what I've noticed is that people who can, especially on the longer side, right? If you have longer arms, that's when I think the 1-hand punches mean more, because you still have to deal with that length. And, even though it's 1 arm, you still have to deal with that length as a rusher. And so that was the only reason I was calling it out. I completely agree that, no, you don't want somebody doing 1-arm punches all the time because they'll adjust to that. But the fact that he already has it in his repertoire coming out of college is
good. That's good.